Welcome to the Circuit of Success Podcast.
The Circuit of Success Podcast.
With your host, Brett
Gilliland. Brett Gilliland, Visionary Wealth Advisory.
The Circuit of Success Podcast. Let's start the show.
Welcome to the Circuit of Success. I'm your host, Brett Gilliland, and today I've got Amber Shaw with me. Amber, how are we doing today?
I am doing great. Thank you. How are you today?
I am great. I was on a golf trip when this is recording, I just got back. We'll air this in a few weeks, but I just got back from a golf trip with 16 guys and then got off a plane and went straight to University of Missouri to see my son for homecoming. And now I'm here with you doing a podcast. So it's been a whirlwind week, I guess it's been now.
I just want to know though, as we age, and I know, I don't know if you've noticed this, but you do a trip like that, 2 trips like that back to back, like you're not really recovered for a good week. Like this is going to take you a minute to get back, right? Can we agree on that?
I can agree on that. And what's worse is I'm leaving tomorrow afternoon to go away for 4 days for a conference. So
oh my God. Yeah.
This will be a tough one, but we'll make it work. We'll make it work. Well, enough about my world travels here and getting old and not being able to recover. But we are going to talk with Amber Shaw, who is a coach, as a podcast host, a speaker. You're helping people all over the country, probably the world. It's amazing some of the stuff that you're doing. But I start every show, Amber, the same way for years, is what's helped make you the woman that you are today?
I mean, I would say without a doubt, the hell and back that I've been through. Honestly, my whole story of how I even started my company at 40 years old without ever knowing a thing about being an entrepreneur is because it came out of a very painful divorce. I was married one of my best friends and known each other since we were 7 years old. We were together for about 15 years. And it was a very, very low point in my life. I was getting ready to turn 40. I was going through this tumultuous divorce that I just never thought would be my life. I was starting over with 2 kids. And I was looking at my life and thinking, damn, this can't be it. What is next for my life? And from that is really when I decided to start my company and really pursue my passion and helping others. And that's really what led me to today. But I would not be where I'm at if I had not gone through everything that I had.
Did you see something when you were growing up from your parents? Like, what did your parents do? Because, people can go through a nasty divorce and they don't turn it into starting a business, right? So I would assume there's something there that allowed you to either think differently or be very proactive and bet on yourself and believe in yourself to go start a company that's helping people, again, all over the country?
I think one of the things for me, definitely it started when I was a kid. Like my dad, I can remember my dad seriously telling me at 8 years old, I don't care what you do, but this is like back in the 80s. Okay. Well, You just better make 6 figures. Like whatever it is you decide to do, you better make 6 figures. So that and also my dad was a big rugby player. He passed away when I was 30, but he had this bigger than life mindset. His mindset and just whole take on life was go big, go hard. That served me well in some areas, but then some other areas of my life, that's not always been the way to go. But yeah, I just think that my dad really instilled in me from a young age, just to just go hard and just really, really push yourself. But I will also say that I think what really set me up for that too was I was in a very successful sales career prior to starting my own company. And I have been 100% commission based since and so if you've always, ate what you kill and being commission based, you just learn, it's you gotta hustle if you're going to make money. And so I think for me, that definitely the combination of the two, just cause I've always made my own damn money. At 23 years old, I bought, a $350,000 house. I was driving around a Mercedes. I had more money than I knew what to do with at that age, but because I've always gone really hard. And so I think that just really set me up for believing in myself that I could do it.
That's why I always call it mine an earned check. I've never been given a paycheck. Nobody's ever just said, here, Brett, this is what you're going to make. And I've been 24 years or whatever it's been in the world of finance, and I've earned every dime, right? And it is, because I believe if you wiped out my entire industry and you said you had to go, start a lawn service or do whatever, right? A car wash. I think you would be successful. I think I would be successful because you know how to do it, right? You know how to do the grind. And so what advice would you have for that person right there, right now, that maybe like the 40-year-old, soon to be single mom at that time that's thinking about they want to change their life? What advice would you give them?
Just get started. Like I think, and I coach women. This is what I do in my coaching business is I actually coach women who have gone through divorce to start their own online coaching business. Cause I know for me, starting my own business was such an incredible healing source for my desire, from my divorce, because I think that for a few reasons. Number one, it gave me more financial stability. That's like the number one stress for women. And maybe men too, but I'm just speaking from a women's standpoint. That is like the number one stress coming out of divorce is, lack of financial stability. I think also when I really started leaning into something that lit me the heck up, I really started to step into my confidence. That's when I started to take my power back and really believe in myself again. But I talk to women every day who are in, and even kind of this scenario, maybe not going through a divorce, maybe even just like 40 and looking at their life. Maybe they're experiencing career burnout, like whatever that is. And they know that they're meant for more. They're just struggling to, make that change. And I think what holds people up is that they just they have almost like analysis paralysis, right? It's like they just they don't know what they would do. And so they just don't do anything. And sometimes, especially when if you're thinking about starting a business, like you don't have to take this massive action, like quit your job, and sell everything and start this thing. In fact, don't do that. Right. Like that would be dumb, right? But like you can do simple stuff. Like have you ever taken like a strength assessment? I know that sounds like so simple, but gosh, it can be so simple. I mean, I know women that are making 7 figures because they're teaching other women how to organize their house. I know I know an entrepreneur that makes 7 figures a year, and she has a digital course where she teaches other parents how to get their picky eaters to eat. Like sometimes, especially in the online space, I think we like way overcomplicate it. I even think just in business in general, because really the key to having a successful business is solving a very specific problem for people who can afford your services. Like that's really it. I mean, I know that that's kind of like a crude way to dumb down business, but honestly, I mean, it's supply and demand. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. And it's so true. But how do you reframe your mindset, right? To believe that. Because I think we have, if you're like me, a lot of us, we have that person over here that says, hey, go do it. This is a great idea. And then you got the person over here that says, hey, who do you think you are? Or, like things like that. Like I've learned over the years now, it doesn't really bother me, but there are people out there that have that negative talk, that paralysis by analysis that you've talked about. So how do we step through that and start building the bridge as we're crossing the river versus having to have the perfect bridge built?
I really think that it starts with showing up for yourself on the daily in little ways, right? I'm sure you've read James Clear, Atomic Habits, talking about just being, 1% better. But what I find is that, confidence, it's not something that's like siloed, right? I think that confidence starts to spread in other areas in your life when you just start showing up for yourself. So maybe what that looks like, and this is what I always tell people to start with too, is like, first of all, before you even think about like starting a business, like, are you taking care of yourself? Like, are you doing like the basic things that we need to take care of ourselves? Like, are you exercising? Are you showing up for yourself in that way? When you commit that you're going to go to the gym, do you do it? Right? When you say you're going to go for a walk, do you do it? Right? When you say you're going to eat more salads this week or eat better this week, do you do it? When you say you're going to drink, when you say you're going to drink less or you're not going to drink that weekend, do you do it? Right? So it's like starting, because I got to tell you, if you can't even show up for yourself on like those baseline things, like when you commit to yourself and if you don't follow through, you're going to have a real hard time making it as an entrepreneur. Yeah. And so I think that, right? Like, are you getting enough sleep? Right? Are you, and just things like that. And so I think that if you're listening to this and you're someone who's really struggling with that confidence, or you're struggling with maybe a little bit of like imposter syndrome, like, oh my God, who am I to teach this? Or who am I to start a business? First of all, I want to normalize that. I don't think there's any entrepreneur, if they were really being honest, said that, oh no, I never had that. Everybody has that. But if you are really struggling with that, and you're trying to get over that, start showing up for yourself. Set 3 goals this week and make it simple. Maybe it's around sleep, nutrition, and exercise, the basic needs of taking care of yourself, and show up for yourself. And do that for a couple weeks in a row and start to see how you feel about yourself. You're going to be freaking proud of yourself, right? And that's how you can start to have some confidence that you're capable of doing stuff.
Yeah. Would you agree too that it's the simple baby step first, not like, okay, hey, I haven't done these things ever in my life and I'm laying in bed or I'm just lazy or I'm whatever. I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves that we think, okay, then now Monday I'm going to start all over and I'm going to do boom, 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 right? And then by Wednesday, you don't do any of them and it's like, oh, crap. And what I've had to learn over the years is start simple, right? If you're not exercising, start with a 1 mile walk. It's not difficult, right? It's 17 minutes. Just walk that way a half a mile and walk back versus having to do everything perfect from day one. Agree?
Oh my God, 1,000%. For years I coached women in the online and in a sustainable fat loss for women over 40. And I can tell you that that is that mindset, that all or nothing mindset. You remember when I said earlier that kind of go big, go home, all or nothing mindset, it served me well sometimes, but not well. And others, well, where it didn't serve me well is, I was the serial dieter for my entire life. I actually had an eating disorder in my 20s. I mean, that all or nothing kind of mindset, it's not sustainable. And so you're right. It is about just starting small. And I think that, especially when we're talking about nutrition and fitness, my God, diet culture totally fuels that, with the hard, what is it? Hard 75 or 75 hard. I mean, good God. And listen, if you do that, not knocking anybody who listens to this that does it, good for you. Me working out twice a day, I'm not doing all that. No, forget it. But forget it. But I'm just
I jokingly call it 75 soft.
Right. 75. Right. I think I've read when people are doing that, and that's a little bit more realistic, I think. But yes, I think that, because here's what people miss. When you have that mindset of oh, I'm just going to go hard on Monday, especially if you've not been doing that, you're missing the whole point of building sustainable habits. And you're always going to go, because if you don't take the time to build up to these things and make them habits, then you're always going to go right back to what you were doing before. As soon as life gets in the way, as soon as stress gets in the way, as soon as you push your needs, below everybody else's, then you are going to go right back to doing what you were doing. And so if you really want to break that cycle, you got to put the time in and go slow and learn to make it a habit, because that's when it sticks for sure.
Yeah. So how do we do that? How do we establish a new healthy habit? I don't necessarily mean healthy from a food standpoint, but just what's a healthy habit and how do you establish a new one?
Well, I mean, I think that it does start by really kind of reverse engineering it, right? So I'll give you an example where, if I had a woman who, when I was coaching in the health and wellness space, where and this is an exercise example, but you can apply it to anything. It's if she's okay, well, what would work better with my schedule is I really want to get up in the morning at 5:30 a.m. And then, she'd try that for maybe a couple of days. And then, you know how that worked, right?
Yeah.
Well, then, when I would be coaching her, instead of focusing on, okay, well, just keep setting the alarm, just keep doing it. It's okay, no, well, let's back it up. Let's reverse engineer this. Why is this not working? Right. Yeah. And, oh, it's not working because you're going to bed at 11:30 at night because you're scrolling on Instagram. Okay. Well, let's put the goal of going to get up at 5:30 in the morning. Let's just put that aside for a minute. Let's work on the goal, because since we're reverse engineering of how this is really going to happen in your day, let's work on the goal from the night before about getting to bed a little bit earlier. Let's work on that for a little while. Let's master that. Then we'll be ready to move on to the next thing. So I do think that it is about obviously getting clear on what you're trying to achieve. Go ahead and try it and be honest with yourself. Is it really working for you, or is it not? And if it's not, get curious and learn to reverse engineer of what are the real steps that need to happen in order for you to consistently make it happen. So if that means blocking off time on your calendar, right? Or, whatever that looks like. But I do think it is about putting a little bit of thought into the actual steps that lead up to it.
Yeah. I wrote that down. I wrote master the night before you try to master the morning routine. Because I struggle with that sometimes. With 4 kids, as you know, it's like you're running
Yeah.
around, you're busy. And I get home and it's from a game and you got to eat late dinner. And it's like, man, now I just want to chill for like a minute, right? I've been working all day. I've been doing kid stuff at night. But then that screws up my next morning to when I want to get up early and do all the things that I want to do. So it's like that vicious cycle. So I appreciate that. It mastered the night before I can master the next morning. That's a big one. What are your daily habits? Like if I were able to follow you around with a camera for a week, what would I see are the no miss items week in, week out, day in, day out?
Yeah. So I would say I am a huge believer in the morning routine. In fact, I fiercely protect it. And it does start with my night routine. I fiercely protect what time I get to bed at night, so that I can get up in the morning. So I do get up in the morning about an hour before my kids get up. And that is my sacred time. Honestly, like I would love to tell you that I like sit and like journal for hours. I don't do all that. No, literally, I just like the silence. I just like a cup of coffee. I have a little like reading area and I just come and I sit. Sometimes I just sit and breathe. Sometimes I just sit. I just think it's so important to actually just give yourself the space, especially before like everything ramps up for the day, to just be with yourself. So I worked up to that. Like I first started like just doing like, I don't know, 10 minutes. And then I was like, God, I really love this. It really sets my day up in not such a chaotic way. So I start with the morning, and I do have a morning routine. Sometimes I write a little, sometimes I, have a little think tank in my business. Sometimes I just literally sit and breathe. I always get some form of movement in my morning. I usually will get the kids on the bus. And then, as an entrepreneur, I have some flexibility with this, but I'll usually figure out what kind of workout I'm going to do for the day. And then my other habit that I'm obsessed with, I do have a cold plunge. I do it every day, although I will just be totally transparent. Now that it's cooling down, I'm finding it harder to do. It's kind of hard. It's hard when it's cold because my plunge is outside.
Okay. Which one do you have?
Yeah. I have the plunge. I have like the actual plunge, which is like the big, they
awesome.
were so kind. Yeah. They gifted me that, to use and share with my audience, which was so incredibly grateful. Love the guys over at Plunge.
Ryan Dewey.
Yep. I had him on my show not that long ago.
Yeah.
He's so
awesome.
fabulous. Yeah, he's great. But I love that thing. Do you plunge or do you have a
I
plunge?
don't do it regularly. I do it enough to be dangerous, but man, it is brutal. And right now, this time of the year, we were talking about weather in Atlanta versus St. Louis. I've been using my swimming pool. And, because it's down in the 50s now, which it's still brutal. I know the people that do like the 30s and the 40-degree temps, I don't know how the hell they do it because when I get in there, I literally think I'm going to die for about the first 20 seconds. And then I finally get my breathing controlled and I sit in there for about 5 minutes and then I get into our little spa deal next to it. Thankfully, that's really hot.
I will say that you do, because I do it at 46, but I will tell you that you do work up to that. And I'm only in there for like 4 minutes. And yes, the first 30 seconds, I feel like I want to die. Okay. That is true. But then your body, then something crazy happens where like all of a sudden it's like, your body just acclimates. And then all of a sudden you start feeling really good. So I do plunge. That is definitely a habit that I'm obsessed with. I love that one. And then I think for me, another just a big habit for me is just kind of, like I said, if you were to follow me around is, I'm going to bed before 10 o'clock. I mean, I'm going to bed. If it were up to me, like I'd be asleep by 9 o'clock. Okay. But I have 2 kids and they're not asleep by 9. That's hard.
Yeah, it is. Especially as they get older. That's what I find.
Yes, especially because of sports and all the things. But I really, really, really try to prioritize my sleep. It just is for me, and I don't apologize about it. I love between 8 and 9 hours, and I really aim for that. Anything less than 7, it doesn't work for me. But so those are just a few of the things I think for me. And I'm constantly drinking a ton of water, and just really paying attention to my nutrition. I really just try and do things throughout my day that are going to help me feel good.
So how do you feel? Thank you for sharing that. That's all great stuff. So how do you feel when people like, this is a pet peeve of mine, is when they say, I don't have time for that, or I'm too busy. And, I struggle, right? Because I'm like, we all have 24 hours and it's amazing that, whether people like him or not, take Elon Musk. I mean, the guy runs, 3 or 4 massive businesses, and he has a lot of time, right, to get some stuff done. He has the same 24 hours that you and I have. And so what's your advice to people that say I'm too busy or I just don't have enough time?
Well, you could see if I don't know if you guys are doing this on video, but yes, I did roll my eyes a little bit, but I don't mean to roll my eyes so like callously. I feel very strongly about this. And this is what I will say is you're right. I do feel it's not that I'm not empathetic to what other people are going through, right? I do realize that there are definitely circumstances
Yep.
that can pull people in a lot of different directions. So I really want to be sensitive to that. But on the other hand, I will say this. I think that if somebody is really struggling and they find themselves like saying that often, I really would invite them to dig a little bit deeper. I really would invite them to really look underneath the surface as to what they are prioritizing. Because as you know, what we prioritize, right, is a direct reflection of what we value. And that is just the truth. Like you can't sugarcoat that, right? Like it just really is like how we prioritize our time is a reflection of what we value. And I think I can speak from a place of experience, which was when I was married, when my now ex-husband, but he is an attorney. He traveled like 6 months out of the year. I had two young kids at home. I was like, ran the household, ran the finances, did everything. In fact, that was a big source of contention with us because I would always say, all you do is go to work. That's it. I do everything else. And I'm still working. No, but I just say like, I was doing it all, but I got to this point where I was very, very burnt out. And it's because that is the scenario that I created for myself. Because when I really started to dig a little bit deeper, I realized, and this is not something that I just like one day had this like epiphany. I mean, this did take some work and going to a therapist and like talking about this and figuring this out. What I realized is that this identity of this like super mom and this super wife is an identity that I created because I got great validation from it. Deep down inside for me, it was fulfilling this desire to feel needed. And so I felt like, and also it was also a sense of control. I felt like if I was doing everything, then I was in control. And for somebody like me, who's, a little bit of a control person, that was going on. And also, like I said, I wanted to be the super mom, like unconsciously, subconsciously, I wanted to be that, even though it was the very same thing that was like killing me and causing burnout and all of the things. So I just share that example so if somebody is experiencing that, man or woman experiencing that, like maybe just get a little curious with that, right? Like explore that. What's that really about? I've talked to other women, and I know men can experience this kind of stuff too. My experience is mostly with working with women, but I would say I know some women too, they, if there's somebody's like, oh, I don't have time, because they're like carrying the burden, they're doing everything. It's maybe because like, take a look at how did your parents operate? Did your mom do that too? Did you just learn that behavior? And then are you teaching your kids that you put everybody else in front of you and you don't take care of you? Do you want the cycle to continue generationally? And most people would probably say no. So, I think it just requires a little bit of self-reflection and getting honest with yourself. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah. What would you tell yourself now? I'm assuming it's mid 40s is something I think that you would tell based on what I've seen in the research is what would you tell that 35-year-old Amber? Like I got asked that question the other day and I love that question.
Oh, girl, what would I tell 35-year-old Amber? Man, she was a mess. She was struggling big time. I would tell her first of all, I would tell her to just slow down. I would tell her to slow down. When I was 35, I had 2 kids like under the age of 4. Like I said, I was working full time. My ex-husband was traveling all the time. I was such in a grind that I do think that relationship dynamic is what led to ultimately a lot of the disconnect in my marriage. And I think in looking back and doing a lot of the work, I do think I wish I just would have slowed down and looked and noticed what was exactly in front of me. And I maybe would have been a little bit more in tune to some of the cues that our relationship was struggling. I think at that time, I really, just thought because we were not like a couple that really fought a lot or anything like that. But I think I just thought like our like disconnect was just kind of like normal stuff that couples deal with when they have kids and like all of
Right.
that. And if I could go back and tell her just to slow down and just pay attention, I think that I would have picked up on some things that maybe it would have turned out, things would have turned out differently. I don't know. But yeah, I would tell her to slow the hell down.
Yeah. It's funny.
Yeah.
I told myself that everything's going to be okay. Right? I think
Yes.
you're in your 20s, your 30s, you're grinding, you're working hard, and you worry about that future. And whatever that future is, And I think
Yeah.
just to slow down, right? Stop worrying. I think those things can kind of be in line there. And so I talk a lot too about fears and the fears that we put in our mind. How many of the fears, if any, that you've put in your mind have actually blown up to the magnitude you put them in your mind to be?
I mean, very little. I mean, seriously, I think that, and my mom always tells me that like, I am like a queen worrier, and I have to work on this all the time about staying present, about not having so much anxiety. I always have been a very anxious kid. I was always very anxious. And now, so to answer your question, like, yeah, not very many. Right. And so I think a really important tool that I've learned along the way to kind of help me to navigate those fears is I like to play a little game called What's the Worst Thing That Can Happen? And I like to just go ahead and just play it forward. Like, let's just play this out, right? Like, even in my business, if I feel like I have a launch or I'm launching a program and it's, I'm halfway through the launch and it's not going very well, then I could get all worked up and have the energy start affecting my launch and what that looks like. Or I could say, okay, let's detach emotion. Let's act like a CEO here. And let's just think about this. If this goes south, what's the next plan of attack? What's the worst that could happen here? Okay, the worst that can happen here, you don't make a sale. Okay, then what? Okay, well, then we're going to do this and pivot. So for me, I think that playing that forward, right? And just being able to think through kind of my next steps and always being a step ahead and always just playing out that it just allows me to, it just takes away, I think, a lot of the anxiety because I'm like, okay, this is the worst that can happen. And I even did that in my divorce. Like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Okay, you're going to get divorced. Okay, well then let's think about that for a second, right? Yeah. Even when I was starting my business, that was something that I said to myself, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Going back to your question earlier, we were saying like, what advice would you give somebody that's like thinking about starting, right? For me, the biggest thing was like, what if I fail? What if I fail at this business? And then it's like, okay, what's the worst that can happen? Well, the worst that could happen is guess what? You just go back and get a job because that you know how to have a job. You've done that your whole life and that's it. Right. So that's been helpful.
And I think that's the betting on yourself thing again, though, right? That I think that it sounds like you're good at it. I'm good at it. But a lot of people aren't. And so that's one where I struggle with, which it doesn't make sense to me, but like, how do we build that confidence? Like, how do we build that confidence in ourselves that it's okay? Like, I'm launching a new business as well called Beyond. It's right over here. It's this members only deal. It's going to be, we've got a place people can come and like-minded people get together. They can do work here. They can have a drink here. They can do whatever. Right. And there'll be 75 members. And there's sometimes when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy. And what if it fails? These are all my friends. And I'm like, dude, shut up. It's not going to fail. And put your work boots on, get to work and get after it. But that's my confidence. How do we build that to the person right now listening to you and I that doesn't have the confidence to go out and start something they're dreaming of starting?
Well, I do think it goes back to a little bit of what we were saying earlier, which is like starting small. When you start showing up for yourself, then you start to build that confidence. But bottom line is that you're never going to know unless you try, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you could sit and I'm sure you see this all the time on social media. You hear about entrepreneurs talking about, hey, listen, you guys are just seeing like the highlight reel. You have no idea though. You're not seeing how many times I tried and how many times I actually failed. Like you're just seeing when I finally got it. So you could sit and wonder all day long if you're going to fail, but you'll never really know. I mean, for me, I'm like, shit, I'd rather give it all I got. And if I fail, well, then I fail. And I know that I gave it all I got as opposed to just sitting around spending the rest of my life wondering what could be. Like to me, that is just depressing. I'd rather just go all in and figure this out and figure out a way. And guess what? If you are somebody who's thinking about starting a business, you are going to fail a lot. You're
Well,
going
and
to
the
try
things
things.
that you're going to fail, you weren't even thinking about, and the things that are going to go well are the ones
Yes.
you're scared about, right? It never goes the
Yes.
way you exactly think it's going to happen.
No, absolutely not. If it was, everybody would be an entrepreneur,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it definitely, but you are going to fail. But I think the key in those failures, and I've gotten to the point now where if I, let's say I am doing a launch or I am, pushing a program or whatever that looks like, I really do. I try to reframe it to not be failures anymore. I always try and look at it as like, okay, what am I going to pivot for next time? And that's really, I think, the difference of like people who really make it as entrepreneurs, right? Is you let go of this failure. Not, it's never a failure. And I think this is just true in life, right? Like if you try something and you quote fail it, it's never a failure if you're learning something from it. And then you just figure out what can I do differently next time, whether that's a relationship, whether that's in business, whatever that looks like. You can't, if you constantly look at things that don't go your way as a failure and you don't bother learning anything from it, well, then you're just going to stay in that cycle. But if you can look at it as like, okay, like this happened and this sucks,
Yeah.
and this is putting me in a really tough position here, but what can I do differently? What can I learn from this? And I think that's what's key.
Yeah, I read early in my 20s, and it's for some reason it stuck with me all these years later. But the discipline weighs ounces, and regret weighs tons. So if you've got that thing in your mind you've been thinking about, like I've been talking about Beyond for 3 years. Like my buddies are probably tired of hearing about it, right? This idea, but then you just keep watering the idea, you keep dreaming about the idea, you keep journaling about the idea, and then that thing's going to blossom and it's going to happen. But you got to take action. But for me,
Yes.
I don't want to get to be 75, 80 years old and regret the things that I didn't do.
Right. Absolutely. And that was a big thing for me when I started my company was I was like, man, I don't know what this looks like. I don't even know how I'm going to do this because I know nothing about being an entrepreneur. I just cannot ignore the voice inside that's like, you're meant for more. Like, this is what you need to be. You need to figure this out because you're right. I didn't want to be 80 years old and look back and regret it as well. I mean, that was huge.
Yep. So where do our listeners find more of your programs? I know you've got something coming out in January. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm super excited about this. I am going to be launching again. It is a company. It is a program called Renew You. And this is an 8-week program that is really geared for the divorced mom. This is very specific for the divorced mom who really is serious about wanting to create an online coaching business of some kind. Even if they have no idea what that would even look like, over this program, I'm really going to be taking women from start to finish of like just concept and idea all the way to getting your first client and all of the strategy and technology and mindset work and action that has to take place in that space of creating an online business. So I'm really, really excited about this. As I said, when I started my business, because my whole why is helping divorced women to really in midlife to really move forward. And the biggest catalyst for that for me was starting my own business for so many damn reasons. And so I am on a mission to really help women stand on their own 2 feet again and really use their experience and their expertise to create something that they are really proud of and can also make some dang money at. So that's what I've got going on in January. So I'll share with you guys the interest list link. I've got that going on right now. Yeah, that's what I got rolling in January.
I'm going to have you pick a number between 1 and 6. We're going to play the old Instagram game here. It's not really an Instagram game. I just made it up. But let's go from between numbers. It's not loading right now. Between 1 and 6, pick a number.
4.
Okay. And between on number 4, between 1 and 3, pick a number.
2.
Okay. So we're going to pull this up here and see what this is. How to climb out of debt in midlife. So what made you focus on that? That was your post on October 11th. Understanding money, which this is what I do for a living, wealth management. So it's kind of ironic. That's what we're picking. Navigating debt and financial anxiety, essential financial habits for midlife women, and more. Talk to us about that. Why is that important to you?
Why is navigating debt? Is that
yeah? Well, you put it on there,
debt?
right?
Yeah.
You put it on your social media.
Yeah.
It means it was important. You wanted people to be aware of it, and talk to us about that.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that debt. I think as we've been kind of talking about, You know, financial stability and security, I think for really any human being, I think is a really big deal. But I do think it is a particularly like sensitive topic for women coming out of divorce, especially I know I experienced it going from two incomes to one. And debt is I know for me, is like the biggest cause of anxiety. Because especially when you're coming out of divorce, you may not know, and if you didn't control the money, you may not know really how to manage your money, right? And you can get into debt really quickly. And I think that it can really take away a lot of your power and really cause a lot of anxiety. So I'm a really big proponent of, number one, women educating themselves on money, right? Like there's no reason why you shouldn't understand investing. There's no reason why these are all things. I mean, I'm sure you have amazing, resources on this, right?
Yes.
There's no reason why women shouldn't understand how to handle their money, how to, increase your money IQ. I mean, that was a huge, huge thing. And I think that was a huge thing for me that really gave me a lot of power. And when I really educated myself on investing and debt and how to climb out of debt and how to keep myself out of debt and how to change my mindset around money and debt and all of that, that really changed the game for me. I became just less anxious all the time worrying about it, but I also became a better entrepreneur, just understanding that. So I really think women increasing their money IQ is huge and so important. And to be honest, there's no excuse why women should not be knowledgeable about money and where it's going and how to spend it and how to invest it.
That's right. Well, those people can call us that don't understand it, right?
That's
They can
right.
call
That's
Visionary
right.
Wealth Advisors. We've got great people, men and women, that can help serve those that are in need. So, where do our listeners find more of you? What's your website, Instagram? Where should we send them?
Yes, for sure. Well, come find me on Instagram. I actually do all my own Instagram. So I'm the one in my DMs. And so I love to connect. If you heard something today that inspired you, or you heard something that you've got a question on, or you want some advice on, come over to Instagram, send me a message. I'm at MS Amber Shaw. So Ms. Amber Shaw. And then you can also head over to my website, ambershaw.com. So come over. And
Awesome.
also, I have a podcast, the Wellness Revolution podcast. This is for helping women in midlife to get unstuck. So you can check me out over there too. Yeah.
Amber Shaw, you've been awesome. Stay with me on here when I hit end, but it's been awesome having you on the Circuit of Success podcast.
It's been an honor. I love the conversation. Thanks.